Keep that. Ready when you are. Excuse me, can you pause it for a minute? We forgot the sound cord.
Is there sound in this room?
I promise you guys, this is worth all this hassle. There you go.
Oh. Audio one?
Yeah.
So you should turn it off there, it might be.
No, audio two.
Audio two?
Yeah. Now, this is what we might be doing in the next class. If you want to have some kind of sound, and if you want to have a video or something like that, then if someone brings a PC in, I do have all of the attachments that are necessary to make it happen. And we have our computer's wizard to help your computer become savvy with the projector. So this is another option rather than using my silly little iPad. Oops. All right, come on in.
Reasonable rental rates.
And I'm in the now, and it don't take no x-ray to see right through my smile. I know I'll be on the go, and it ain't no drink out there that can numb my soul. Oh no, all we wanna do is take the chains off. All we wanna do is break the chains off, man. All we wanna do is be free. All we want to do is take the chains off. All we want to do is take the chains off. All we want to do is take the chains. All we want to do is tell me why. Every time I step outside, I see my niggas die. Oh, I'm letting you know that it ain't no gun they make that can kill my soul. Oh no. Say, all we wanna do is take the chains off. All we wanna do is take the chains off. All we wanna do is be free. All we wanna do is be free. All we wanna do is take the chains off. All we wanna do is break the chains off. All we wanna do is be free. All we wanna do is be free.
Someone else, like the officers pulling up inside the car, he's trying to pull away. And at no time the officer said that he was going to do anything until he pulled out his weapon. His weapon was drawn, and he said, "I'll shoot you, or I'm going to shoot." And in the same moment, the first shot went off. And we looked at him, he was shot, and there was blood coming from him, and we took off running.
Are we all alone? Fight to get on. Please give me a chance. I don't wanna dance. Something's got me down. I will stand my ground. Don't just stand around. Don't just stand around.
And as we took off running, I ducked and hid for my life because I was afraid for my life. And I hid by the first car that I saw. My friend, he kept running, and he told me to keep running because he feared for me too. So as he was running, the officer was trying to get out of the car, and once he got out the car, he pursued my friend, but his weapon was drawn. Now, he didn't see any weapon drawn at him or anything like that, us going for no weapon. His weapon was already drawn when he got out the car. He shot again, and once my friend felt that shot, he turned around and he put his hands in the earth, and he started to get down, but the officer still approached with his weapon drawn, and he fired several more shots, and my friend died.
You know how hard it was for me to get him to stay in school to graduate? You know how many black men graduate? Not many. Because you bring them down to this type of level where they feel like, I don't got nothing to live for anyway. They're going to try to take me out anyway.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Hello, I'm Joseph Blue, and we'll be going over the Ferguson Riots. This is
Mark Smith. And I'm Gabriel Romero.
So as you can see in the video, there was a teenager that was gunned down by a police officer. These two teenagers, they said they were just walking, I guess they were walking from the store, was the story, and they got encountered by a policeman, and as they were walking, the policeman told them to get on the sidewalk. But as he told them that, he got off the car with his weapon drawn, as he said, and when he got out, they took off running because they didn't know what to do. You see a cop get out with his gun, what do you expect? Like, you don't really know what's going on. And some people, especially being a teenager, a young boy, you don't know how to react, especially being in an environment in Ferguson, Missouri. It's like a lot of oppression and racism and racial discrimination to where they don't feel comfortable. So therefore, the two boys took off running. And when he took off running, the cops decided to chase the bigger boy. So he went to chase after the bigger boy, and he ended up shooting him dead. He had no weapon or anything. He ended up shooting him, and like he said, he put his hands up, and then went to his knees like he was surrendering, and he still fired several more shots, which were 6 shots that killed him dead with no weapon. No reason to kill him at all, except for that he ran. This young boy goes by the name Mike Brown, that's his name. He was 18 years old, just graduated from high school. When I seen him, when I seen the picture of him and I read about this, I read the details of who he was. He was 18 years old, 6'4", about 300 pounds. And I was thinking, I was like, when I graduated high school, this is kind of like me. Like, this could have been me. I could have been Michael Brown if I was in this community. And it made me think about a personal story that happened to me when I was about 13 years old. And I was coming from football practice. I was riding my bike home. I live in a bad neighborhood, but it's like not enough. I'm still a child riding on the bike going home. And so I got pulled over by the police. And when I got pulled over by the police, they're like, get on the ground now, get on the ground now. I'm on my bike, scared for my life, 13-year-old boy. I laid on the ground. I was shaking on the ground. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm 13. And they told me to get up. I guess they're assuming that I was a man. And I was like, what are you doing? What are you doing out this late? I was coming from football practice. I'm coming from school. It was like, so after that, I think his mind changed to where I guess he realized I was a kid. So they were like, you know why we pulled you over? And I was like, no, I have no idea. He was like, because normally people that carry backpacks carry guns in them. And I thought to myself, like, really? I just told you I was coming from school. Why can't I just be coming from school? Why do I have to have a gun? That didn't make sense to me. And I was just thinking, like, this is Mike Brown could have been me. And thank God that I'm here. And a big thing that's going on, like I talked about earlier, is the oppression. And in Ferguson, Missouri, they have a police force that consists of about 56 police officers. 53 of them are white males. 3 of them are black males. And the reason why it's like the diversity isn't there, so they feel oppressed because they have no input. Like, if you have a mixture between people, there would be no racism or anything thought about that because it's all equal and everybody's getting treated fair. But you can't have the oppression of authority, which means a person that's higher, a police officer, and you feel like you have no way to live because the police officer is controlling your neighborhoods. And when they're controlling your neighborhoods, you feel like you're worthless, basically. And that's what his mom was trying to say in the video. Like, no matter where they go, they get harassed by the police. That's how bad they're oppressed. Like, they might as well do what they want to do, live how they live, and try to be themselves. But either way, when they try to do something positive, like me, for instance, when I was just coming home from football practice, not doing nothing wrong, you know, somebody always comes in the way and try to bring them down to that level, to where they feel unworthy, they feel oppressed, they feel under, they don't feel like they're worthy to that police force. And he's going to talk about the actual procedures that police go through with authority and stuff like that.
Okay. Good evening, my name is Gabriel Romero. Just as Blue was talking about, we're going to be talking about the Ferguson, what happened there. Previously, in my past experience, I was in the military, and I had, my obligation, my occupation at the time was security forces, which is a nice way of saying that I was military police. So, in my past, I have done many DUI points, checkpoints, been to a couple domestic violences, and when I was stationed overseas, I was working at a detainment facility. And within a detainment facility, I've worked with riots myself. So I kind of have a good idea of giving, I guess, a law enforcement procedures. So let's get down to the basics. Go to the next slide. So when you're first starting off, and when they start teaching you about law enforcement, the guide that they give you the most to understand is going to be the use of force continuum, or also just known as the use of force. Now, as you can tell, it's a 3-tier, 5-level, and through it, on one side you have the subject's actions, you have the risk perceptions, and also the officer's response. Now, this is essentially a guideline for officers to, what's the word I'm looking for? To have an idea of how much force to put into any given situation. Now, say for instance, like I was saying, when I've gone for domestic violences, you're not really too sure what's going to happen. You go for a domestic violence, you show up, could just be a normal dispute between a husband and wife, verbal conversation, verbal talks. Like say for instance, they're just having a horrible argument, they're just yelling back and forth. So the subject's actions, as you can see, or you can kind of see, make it up, it's, let's say that it's going to be a little bit resistant. Not so much passive, but a lot more resistant because they're yelling at each other. Now remember, if you're a police officer, you're going in and you're trying to separate them, and you're trying to be essentially the person correcting the wrong. So you take a look at the risk perceptions, and then you realize, okay, well, they're arguing, so it's not going to be a professional, which is at the bottom of the tier. It's going to be more of a tactical, but it's not so much of a threshold, it's going to be more of a tactical. So you talk to them, use verbal constraints, and you talk to them, see where everything's at. So we move it up this ladder right here. Say, for instance, you'll be going from control tactics, and then moving back down to cooperative controls. Now, taking a look at Ferguson started off, or with the riot that happened with Mike Brown, it escalated from one point to having someone supposedly having a weapon and unfortunately passing away. So you can tell that officer didn't use the right risk perception. Oh, even though his subject took off, there's nothing that had the point to bring out a weapon. If the boy didn't have a weapon out, there's no point to bring out your weapon, or discharge a weapon for that matter. Does that kind of give you guys a good idea of what the use of force model is? A little bit of an understanding from a police perspective? Okay, next slide. So these are some of the levels, the escalation of force. There's level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As you can see, like I was explaining before, you start off from the lower level, and from the lower level, those are usually just calm tactics. So you're just having essentially just normal conversation, a little bit easier. Then it moves all the way to the very, very top, which is lethal. So to get a good idea of that, so say for instance, you show up somewhere, and you're having a dispute. First level, you would go more of like a physical presence, so more cops on scene. The second level would be verbal commands, so essentially you're shouting, you're yelling back and forth saying get down, or just to get everything kind of brought down, to de-escalate. The next one would be empty hand submissions. So empty hand submissions, instead of bringing out like your weapon or bringing out a baton, that's more of like using pressure point tactics. So combatives, anybody kind of have an idea of what that is? Pressure points and all that kind of stuff? Okay, cool. And the next one would be using the intermediate weapons, which would be OC spray, batons, and also tasers, beanbags, rubber bullets, and lastly but not least, it will be level 5, which will be lethal weapons. So, you guys have pretty much a good idea, or a little bit of understanding?
All right, good evening, everyone, again. I'm Mark Smith, and I'm going to be talking about the overarching issue, the issue that connects racial profiling and the use of force in America. And in case you haven't figured that out, it's race. It's race in America. And race is one of the most uncomfortable topics, if not the most uncomfortable topic for people to discuss. This is the second time I've given this presentation, and it's still uncomfortable for me to discuss right now. But why is that? Why is it uncomfortable? I mean, it's 2014, we have a black president, schools have been desegregated for over 60 years now. The issue is that you, me, everyone here in the United States of America, we are all just a little bit more racist than we would like to admit, on one way or another. You see right here, Associated Press 2012 survey results, 51% of Americans hold anti-black views. Furthermore, a 2011 Associated Press study showed that 52% of whites held anti-Latino views. How is that possible? I can only really speak for myself, but I know that you are all college students in a school in one of the most diverse counties, not just in the state, but in the entire nation. So my assumption is that you're all as equally, if not more, taken aback by those statistics as I am. But that's not us, right? Because we're in that super diverse county, right? That 51, that 52%, they must be talking about, you know, the other America, all right, red America, or Confederate America, rural America, all the Americas that we're not a part of, right? We aren't racists, right? I'm not one of the whites that believes that the Trayvon Martin killing and that race was not a factor. I believe it was, and it was. As Martin Luther King said, I don't judge people by the color of their skin, I judge them by the content of their character. Except for on September 22nd of this year. That wasn't too long ago. I was walking to class, and I saw the missing persons poster of CSUN International student Abdullah Al-Qadi. Now, to give you a little background on me, in my past, I spent 8 months fighting the Taliban in Afghanistan. And combine that life experience with everything you've heard in the news lately, covered in the media, up and down, about young Muslims disappearing to go join the Islamic State and fight against us and want to do harm to us. So when I saw this poster, I judged Abdullah on nothing but his name and the color of his skin. That is racism, no matter how you want to cut it. Some people call it covert racism. See, I don't really like that because covert by definition means you're trying to hide something. See, I prefer subconscious racism because it just clicks in your head and you don't know why. You don't believe in it, it just happens. You can't control it, and you hate yourself for feeling that way. Nicholas Kristof, he's a 2-time Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. He writes for the New York Times, basically studied at every Ivy League school you can think of. I think he puts it best. The larger problem is a broad swath of people who consider themselves enlightened, who intellectually believe in racial equality, who deplore discrimination, yet who harbor unconscious attitudes that result in discriminatory policies and behavior. See, it's the small business owner who during the day is so happy and ecstatic that he just hired a new person and all the good productivity that they're going to bring to his business, regardless of what their color is. Just so happens that he's black. He couldn't be happier to have him on his team now. But that same business owner, on his walk home that night, gets nervous and doesn't know why when he sees a Latino man about to cross him on the sidewalk. Or in my case, it's the veteran who last semester tutored, gave up my time for free to tutor a Saudi Arabian student, and then this semester saw a missing poster for another Saudi Arabian student and thought they were terrorists. It's the racism that affects all of us, if only a little bit. And just like the racism that you think about when I say that word, the one you see when you think about American History X, you see it in the media, or you think about the KKK, or the Civil Rights Movement, that's when you think about racism. This subconscious racism is learned the same way, but not from the same people. A lot of people who you think would be outward and overtly racist, or consciously racist, they learn it from their family, they learn it from people they know. The subconscious racism, we learn it from people we don't know. You learn it from your environment. You pick it up from the news, you pick it up from popular culture. It comes from the stereotypes, both negative and positive. All these things work together to shape and form and perpetuate this perception of people and what their race identity is. And it's completely wrong, horrid, terrible, every negative adjective you can think of. What we can do is recognize it. If it happens to you, fight it, accept it, and do everything you can to stop it. And when you see it happen to a friend, or maybe your kids, in the future, you have to work hard, because that's the racism that is truly harming America. Not what we think of the small fringe in red America. It's all of us here. So to close up for our presentation, we're going to have a little audience activity. All right, now you don't have to participate if you don't feel comfortable. All right, all I'm going to ask is by a show of hands if anybody believes that that's happened to them. Basically what happened to me. Nobody? Go. Sorry. I'll turn the green light on again. We've all done it. I mean, you heard my story. I'll put my hand way up high. All you have to do is recognize it and fight it as hard as you can. So that hopefully, one day, in the near future, not the far future, we can all live by Martin Luther King's words. That concludes our presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Did you see? Didn't I tell you it was worth waiting for? What's interesting is in our class,